Another windy, overcast, rainy, foggy day here in Nova Scotia, February 16th. The garden is frozen and there's nothing going on in that garden right now. But I got plenty of things to eat in my house that I picked from the garden last fall. Let's have a look. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com. I thought I'd do a video today. This is from a viewer request and I've been meaning to do it anyway. I was asked to show, like, what do I have stored in my house? How much stuff do I have put down? You know, I've talked many times in my videos about how I really don't think it's worth my while, where I live, with the amount of sun I get in the winter. Not the length of day, but the actual amount of sunlight I get through the clouds. It's very cloudy here. We just don't get a lot of sun in the winter due to our proximity to the ocean. It's just foggy and overcast a lot. So there's just no heat generated in a cold frame to really get anything to grow in any meaningful way. And I've shown videos on that, and if I ever get a day where it's not super windy and rainy outside on the weekend, I'll take it back to my cold frames. I've done a video of my cold frames every month since October, following up on some stuff I put in there in October. Some spinach and kale and parsley, I believe. Just to see how much goes on over the winter here where I am, because people are always saying, why don't you do this, why don't you do that, so on and so forth. And as I've said, we really don't get the sun, but I thought just to show people anyway. And the reason I do that isn't to inspire pity or anything like that. It's just for the sake of people that perhaps they've seen someone growing stuff in the winter and they've tried it and it's not working. They're thinking, what am I doing wrong? You may be doing something wrong, or you may just live somewhere where there's no sunlight in the winter. And again, I don't mean length of day, I mean the actual amount of sun that gets through the cloud cover. It might just be too overcast for the sun to get through and heat up the ground where your stuff's trying to grow. So it's just dormant. You know, my kale and my spinach and my parsley that in my cold frames, they're not dead, they're alive, but they're just hanging on, they're really not growing. That doesn't matter, because I think it's much more worth your while to grow a lot of things that store easily. I do some canning. I don't put a lot of energy into canning because I prefer to put my energy into squash, root vegetables, and things like that that are really easy to store. I have a garage actually right below where you are right now, and it's connected to my house. There's a heater in the garage that I have the thermostat set to 0 degrees Celsius. And for some reason that seems to keep the garage at around, because it's connected to the house, I guess. I don't think it ever really trips in. It might trip in once in a while, but the temperature in the garage tends to stay around 5 degrees, 6 degrees, 7 degrees. I check it. I was bringing everything up from the garage to show you all this stuff today, and I checked. I think we're somewhere between 6 and 7 degrees Celsius there. It seems to be a great temperature for storing things. So let me show you everything I got here. And I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I think I've got 3 or 4 squash in the basement as well. I'll have to bring at least one of those up to show them to you as well. So let's start with the canned goods. So I got, this is Mrs. Maritime Gardening's favorite stuff. Zucchini relish made from golden zucchini. I mean, she likes the green stuff, but for some reason she likes the yellow kind as well. And this is one that's got some red peppers in with it as well. Anyway, I make a lot of it because we eat a lot of it. My kids are starting to like it a little bit. And I mean, if we have a meal, like if we have like a pork chops, sorry if you're vegetarian, but I'm not at this point in time anyway, we might go through half one of these jars as a group. Right? So it does go fast when we eat something that goes with this. Makes a great sort of chutney, it's just what they call zucchini relish. So I got lots of that. I got a bit of pickled beans. These are yellow beans. I know one of my viewers asked me to show a video of how to make it. I didn't make this year. This is from the previous year, so you didn't miss out. I did not make any. I'm the only person in the house that likes mustard beans, and I like them, but I'm not mad for them. So, like, as long as I have 1 or 2 jars around, I had 2 jars going into this year, so and that's about the amount of pickled mustard greens that I want to eat in a year for me anyway. It's not like when I was growing up, we'd have put like a dish of that on the table and some pickled beets, and everybody would sort of eat some. But I'm really the only one that's gets into it here, so it tends to last a while. I should probably put this in the fridge and use it up. I'm going to stick it over here. Mustard greens. I got pickled beets, right? These are half-gallon jars, right? So pickled beets. I think I got another jar down here. There's another jar here, pickled beets, right? I'm running low on pickles, actually. This is also, for those that watch my video, this is a gallon jar. This one here. I probably made the equivalent of 10 of these this year, and they're all gone except these two. That's it. And I eat them, my son eats them. My daughter is just barely getting into pickles, and my wife eats them sparingly. I'm the big pickle eater here. I eat them all the time, like a snack. So probably too much salt in my diet, but I love them. So yeah, that's all that's left of my, I believe, yeah, of pickled cucumbers. I still have other pickled things. I got the beets, of course, and these are the lacto fermented. That's the only way I do my pickled cucumbers, right? For beets, I've tried lacto fermenting them and not had good results. I've not been happy with the flavor of the result. I do them the vinegar, sugar, canning way that I grew up doing. I prefer the way they taste. If anybody knows how to make a decent fermented beet, please mention something in the comments. Direct me to a website that says how to do it. I've tried it a number of different ways, and they're all not good. But maybe I'm just doing it wrong. So there's that. Let's put these away. What else we got here? This is a kohlrabi, a pickled kohlrabi. I'm not like super crazy about this, but I do like some pickled things. I like adding them to things. So the pickled kohlrabi, I really like adding to things. Number one, it allows you to keep the kohlrabi for quite some time. If I'm making a stir fry, for instance, I'll take a few pieces and throw it in. Seems to be a really good way to just add a little bit of bite to things. But I will also, once the cucumber pickles run out, then I eat the beets and the kohlrabi, and everything else gets eaten once the cucumber pickles get used up. And I can't believe it's February and I'm almost through everything. Probably be done by the end of March or before. Still got some of these garlic scape pickles. I have some in my fridge as well. Again, this is something I use to cook with. Like, you know, if you were doing a stir fry and you were going to put garlic in the stir fry, I just put, you know, like maybe half a cup of this. Not the liquid, but the greens in there. And I mean, if you're going to do a stir fry, you need salt, you need acid anyway, so these sort of fill the bill, right? Because they're salty and acidy and garlicky. So you get the garlic flavor, the salt, and the acid. So it's just a simple way to do it. Same with this. This has got garlic in it, right? So you add this, it's kind of like a turnip-like, I guess, kohlrabi. But by adding it to a stir fry, you get that garlickiness, the saltiness, and the acidity. And you don't end up throwing them out. And you can, like, if I smuggle this stuff into a stir fry, I can get my wife and kids to eat them. What else we got here? All right, that's all the canned stuff as far as I can recall. We ate all our jam. I just did a video the other day on how to make freezer jam. Watch that video if you want to learn about that. If you're still making cooked strawberry jam, you might want to switch. I would highly recommend strawberry freezer jam. It just, to me, tastes infinitely better. What else we got here? I got two different ways to store potatoes. I'll put them in boxes like this, and I've shown videos on that. But also, if I'm sort of in a rush, I'll just, if you live where I live, this is what they call a liquor store bag. It's the bags that you buy wine or whatever in where I live. They put it in a bag like this. But the great thing about these bags is they don't let a lot of light through. So you can look at, these are my russet Burbank potatoes, and they've been in this bag all winter long. And there's no eyes, right? Nothing, right? They're perfectly stored just by stuffing them in this bag. The bags, there's probably like 3 pounds in here, right? I didn't grow enough of these kind. They're really good for French fries and mashed potatoes. I grew a ridiculous amount of the red Norland potatoes, which are great for baking or potato salad or that sort of thing, or like doing spuds, like, you know, when they cut them up and toss them with pepper and salt and pepper and roast them like that. But they're no good for mashed potatoes. And they're okay for French fries, but they're not ideal. These russet Burbanks are much better for French fries because they're drier, right? They get crispier. This box is full, chock full of chock full of I think these are red Norland. It could be red chieftain. I grew red Norlands and red chieftains, and I'm sure there's some way to tell them apart, but I didn't hold them side by side. I think these are Norlands, I think, but again, I wouldn't bet the house on it. Anyway, that's just the top tier, right? This box is, well, it's heavy. It's probably 20 something pounds, right? So I got another tier down here, right? Lots of potatoes, and I got another tier below that, right? And each tier is just separated by newspaper. See if I can show that in the camera. Yeah, so there's a little bit of paper, a little bit of newspaper, and another layer of potatoes below that, and so on and so forth all the way down, right? And it seems to provide the right amount of air and the right amount of darkness to keep them. Just keep them somewhere cool, and they should keep quite well. And I see this one has a, no, that's just vestigial. So they're really not, yeah, they're not eyeing out yet. Nothing's happening yet. That's just an old root. That's not an eye. So yeah, as long as they stay cool, and dark, they should be good. So I got to get eating these. It's going to be time to start planting really soon. Anyway, I haven't bought potatoes all year. And so I've lamented in my show about not having enough potatoes at the rate we eat them. And I mean, this isn't the only starch we have in our diet. We eat potatoes, we eat rice, we eat pasta, right? We eat bread, right? All those different things. And this one here, the amount of potatoes I planted last year, for the rate we eat them, in my family, seems to be the right amount of potatoes, because I got lots left, and these are going to carry me probably into April. Yeah, I don't think I should plant any more potatoes in this. I got to go back over my records and see exactly how much I planted and basically stick with that. So this is some of the potatoes. Yeah. Here's some more. One of these liquor store bags. Right, these are in great shape, right? Remember, when I store these, I don't, so you can see that they look a bit dirty. It's because I don't really clean them. I spread them out on the floor of my garage on like a piece of burlap or cardboard, and I just let them, I keep the lights off when I pick them, right? And I just leave them like that for a week, and I let it with a fan, right? Or I have them outside if the weather's going to cooperate. It's so often misty here, but anyway, I let them dry off, and then I just sort of give them a quick dusting and put them in a bag. So they're never cleaned with water, right? I do that when I'm going to cook them. Well, this bag's still pretty much full. Here's in this one, parsnips. Still got lots of parsnips, right? These are great. I'm gonna eat these today. We're gonna have like a chicken dinner today. So nice big parsnips. Stored them exactly the same way as the potatoes. If anything, I find parsnips get better. Like these ones are, these are the Albion variety. People ask me which ones tasted better, the Albion or the Hollow Crown. I tell you the truth, I can't tell the difference. They're both good. They're both great. I really can't tell the difference. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, I planted two varieties of parsnip in my. I love parsnips because they store so well and they're really good eating. I mean, in a sense, they're sweeter. There's more sugar in one of these than a potato, I think. They're just have a much more, you roast them, we eat them by roasting them. I think they have a much more complex flavor than a potato. They're wonderful and they keep really well. And interestingly, I find they actually seem to taste better as the winter wears on. I don't know if more of the starch converts to sugar. I don't know what really happens, but yeah, these are just great. And I know people have said, oh, I just put hay over mine and I go out in the garden and harvest them as I need them. That's great. We get a lot of rain here in the winter, and the ground, it's very hard to keep the ground from freezing. So because it's so wet, it'll get really wet during the day, and then then it'll get down to 15 below freezing at night, and then it'll get wet during the day and that sort of thing, right? So it's very difficult to keep the ground from freezing. But even if I could, it's kind of handy to just get them out of a box in the garage. Right? This works. You do what works for you. Right? This is easier than going outside and getting them out of the ground, and there's no risk of any sort of pest damage or them getting frozen in or whatever, right? This is a zero risk way of storing them. I can also say that, there is a little bit of, what's that called? There's that thing that some parsnips get where the skin gets damaged. Oh darn it, what's that called? Not canker, but it's not coming to mind anyway. There's an affliction that some parsnips get, like dark spots appear on the skin. You can still eat them, but a dark spot appears in the skin. They're fine to eat, but anyway, my heirloom parsnips get that, and the hybrid ones, these Albion or hybrids, they don't seem to get that. These ones are pristine, right? So I got lots. I still got lots of them. I'm happy with that. That was the right amount, you know. About 2 4x10, 4x10 beds is the right amount of parsnips for my family, right? One more box. Carrots, I ate the last of my carrots about 3 weeks ago. Remember, it's middle of February, so this is what's left, right? Everything's been eaten. So these are more potatoes, and look, they look pristine. Pristine potatoes, right? Just in a box like that, nothing fancy, right? Nice potato. So I got plenty of those, plenty of potatoes. Let's put this back on here. Now, what else do I have? That's not it. I still got more stuff. We grew a lot of stuff last year. You know, I got some pickles that are half open in the fridge and stuff like that. Of course, I'm not going to show you that. But now this stuff was in my deep freeze, but I just brought it up here to make this video. So this is what's left of my beans. These are frozen beans. I've done videos on how I put those down. Just check back, you know, look at my videos back in August or September. You'll see a video on how I do that. These are green beans. And this is kale. This is basically, I think I've shown this before, but I'll take the kale and blanch it really quickly and stuff it really tightly into one of these containers, then put it in the deep freeze overnight and then pop it out. And put 4 or 5 of those in a bag. And that's a really easy way. And you know, this is like a pound. This is a pound of kale. So to put it another way, if you were going to go to a supermarket and buy a whole head of kale, you'd have to buy 2, maybe 3 to get this much kale, right? Now for my family, this is 1 meal's worth of kale. And sometimes I'll mix the Swiss chard in with the kale. I like a combination of Swiss chard with kale. But anyway, I store a lot of these, and this is the last of it, I think, unless there's some you know, in the deep freeze downstairs somewhere. But I think this is the last of my kale. So that's pretty good, right? So this is the equivalent if you had 3 full-sized kale plants and picked them all, right? So I can't see any winter gardening exercise that could produce that. You know, we basically eat one of these a week until they run out, right? So we're in the middle of February. We'll either eat this weekend or next weekend, and that'll be it. That's not bad, right? Fresh kale or close to fresh kale from June until the end of February. That's pretty good kale out of a garden, right? And just convenient, right? I don't have to go outside. All I do to cook this is the morning of, like the day I'm going to eat this, I'll just take this and throw it in a bowl with cold water and leave it there. You know, when we get home from work, you just strain it out. It's completely thawed, and you cook it. It cooks very quickly because it's already been cooked for 1 minute, right? So it cooks almost instantly. All right, I'm going to pause the camera. Oh, one more thing, right. Herbs, right? I grow a lot of herbs, so I store herbs in 2 ways. I dry them. I've never done a video on drying them. I always seem to run out of time, and I'm in a rush, and I just don't seem to have the time. I put the herbs on a big sort of flat mesh thing and just stick them in my shed for a while until they're completely dry. And I just sort of smush them and smash them and get the stems off, and I put them in a jar like this, right? That's pretty much all that's left of the dried herbs. But I also have, I have about 12 of these in my deep freeze, so this is a pesto. So around July, when all the garlic have their scapes, you can only eat so many garlic scapes, and I grow a lot of garlic, you know, like last year I probably grew 150 garlic. So, I mean, you can only, all your scapes basically come in a span of about 2-3 weeks, and then you gotta take the scapes off to get the best size out of your garlic. So in 2 or 3 weeks you get a ridiculous amount of garlic scapes. So you really can't keep up with it by eating it. There's only so much you can pickle, especially if you're the only person in the house that eats it. You know, and it's not like you know, if you spend an afternoon eating pickled garlic, you're going to impress your wife for a romantic meal afterwards, right? It's garlic after all, right? So you know, like maybe a gallon of pickled scapes is all you want to put aside. A great way, because around that time of year you tend to have a lot of herbs, all your perennial herbs. For me, that would be oregano, savory, thyme. I got a number of perennial herbs in my garden, and they're all quite big at that point because they start growing. Some of mine start growing very early. So I'll take the scapes and the herbs and you know, some lemon and some oil, and I'll have to do a video on this. It's just sort of a recipe I kind of made up. This isn't pesto like the classic Italian pesto with you know, what are those called? Pine nuts and Parmesan cheese and all that. It's not like that. Basically preserved herbs, right? So I just put that with some salt in a food processor, pack it in little jars like this, like a freezer jam almost, right? Because it's got salt, because it's got oil, there's very little water in here. It doesn't really expand to break the jar. And I just put them all in the deep freeze. And I just take them out as I need them. So I mean, one jar like this, I might use a third of this to make a nice pasta, maybe a bit more. So you know, it lasts quite a while. It's just another way to put your herbs aside, and another way to sort of make use of your garlic scapes. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to go bring up pumpkin. Yeah, so here's one of my last remaining squash. I have 4 left. This is the largest of the 4. They're all close to this size, but the other 3 are a bit smaller. These are still good. No soft spot. I mean, it might be, yeah, there is a bit of softness here. So the way I use these up is I inspect them around. They tend to go soft at the stem end, so I inspect the end. There's a bit of softness here. Still good, right? Still sound, but it's gone a bit soft here, so you just cut off that end and use the rest. This one's going to be used up this weekend. We're basically eating a squash every weekend to use them all up. And that's not bad. I mean, they got us into February, right? I grew 2 kinds of squash this year. This, I can't remember what this is called. These are seeds I got years ago, and I've been saving the seeds. They're Ukrainian variety that I bought online. They're really good, and they grow really well, and they're big enough to make some of them have like a good jack-o'-lantern shape. And they're reasonably good tasting, a good eating pumpkin. The other variety I grew, which we ate the last of them last weekend, was called Winter Sweet. I got those from Vessi Seeds. Those ones grew really fast. They're a much better tasting winter squash to me than this one. Certainly the consensus around the dinner table was that the Winter Sweets were better. They didn't last as well. They didn't store. I think these have a thicker, harder skin. That's why they store better. So, I mean, there's always those balances, right? We ate the last one last week and it had a lot of soft spots on it. I would say the Winter Sweet, superior tasting squash, but, you know, it'll take you through to the end of January, and then it gets pretty dicey after that, unless you've got like a really, really ideal winter storage type setup. Anyway, I think that's everything. If I've forgotten anything, I'm not quite sure, but that's most of it anyway. Oh, one more thing. Yes. I tried something new this year, and I'm down to the last of it. This doesn't look too appetizing, but I did fermented some of my plum tomatoes. I fermented 2 jars of them. I watched a number of people on YouTube talking about fermented tomatoes, and they said they were amazing and so on and so forth, so I followed the recipe to the letter. I wasn't crazy about eating them on their own, like you would a pickle, but I found that adding them to dishes really, it's almost like adding a pixie dust. Not just the pickled tomato, but just putting the brine. So any sort of dish like a pasta dish or even a curry, something you want to add a little bit of acidity. Let's say it calls for a lemon. I mean, it depends. If you want a citrus taste, then you have to use a lemon. But sometimes something calls for a lemon because they want you to add acidity, right? Instead of some things like pasta, for instance. You wouldn't add a lemon to pasta. You would add like a red wine to pasta. Let's say it calls for a half cup of red wine. I found putting like a third of a cup of this in sort of does a similar kind of job. It adds that acidity. There's a sort of complexity of flavor here. There's a garlickiness to this, saltiness. Now, if you add a third of a cup of this, you dial back the salt as you're making it. But anyway, I found it was good for that, and that's why I still have a little bit left. Basically, there's certain things I make. I'll dice one of these up and throw it in, and put a bit of this brine, and it seems to really pick up the flavor of it. Anyway, that is what's happening in my garden. There's nothing happening in my garden, but I'm still eating out of my garden. I eat out of my garden almost every day, but certainly well into the winter. This year I think I grew a good combination of things that keep well, that are easy to store. And that's the way I go about it. I mean, lots of people have different approaches to this. A lot of people do a lot of canning. I don't like the flavor, for instance, like a canned bean. I don't mean a pickled bean. I mean like beans that are just like, you know, heated and vacuum sealed. I find them mushy. I find the blanched and frozen bean, when you cook that, it tastes very close to what it would fresh. It's crunchy, has a fresh taste, so I prefer that. Of course, all of this requires a freezer, but I think any modern home is really missing something if it doesn't have a deep freeze. Not just for, you know, what comes out of your garden, but if you see something go on sale at a grocery store, you could buy it in bulk and put it in your freezer, right? If bread goes on sale, you can buy a whole bunch of bread, throw it in there, certain things like that, right? So it's just a really useful thing to have in your kitchen to economize at the grocery store, but it's also a great way to store what comes out of your garden. So anyway, that's I think that's all out of me. Hope you found that interesting and informative. Thank you for that suggestion. Whoever, I can't remember who made the suggestion, but it's a good idea for a video, although it was a bit of work bringing all this stuff up here. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. And until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.